In the dense darkness of the Osiris temple, Dennis saw a woman lying motionless. She wasn't sleeping. She was rebooting. When Dennis, in his consciousness form, lifted her up, he saw the shift in the depths of her eyes. Fear, that ancient monster that has haunted humanity since the dawn of time, had vanished without a trace, replaced by a cold, profound acceptance. She had grasped the source code of the universe. The body is just temporary hardware, while she, this soul, is eternal software. She cannot die. She just switches servers. The alien nodded. This is the final checkpoint. The process is complete. Feminine energy has been patched. Vision has been calibrated. Joy has been overclocked. And death has been hacked. Now, the system is ready for the ultimate initiation. Dennis stood there, trembling with emotion. His 40 years of life felt like trying to assemble a spaceship by only looking at drifting debris. He had seen the pieces, but never understood the overall circuit diagram. But now, the map had lit up. All of Egypt is not a giant graveyard. It is a living machine. Every stone, every statue is an electronic component. It isn't dead. It's just in standby mode, patiently waiting for humans to remember the login password. Do you want to try, Dennis? The alien's voice rang out, full of temptation. Stop standing there like a spectator. Get in the driver's seat. I will take your consciousness straight to Giza, right now, into the king's chamber. Rich people pay thousands of dollars just to meditate there for 3 minutes and feel nothing but a backache. But you get the full option package because you spent 40 years preparing the hardware. Do you dare? Dennis didn't even need to think. The answer was programmed in his blood. Zoom. His consciousness was yanked backward. Space was torn apart. The vertigo this time wasn't chaotic. It was directional. He felt himself hurtling at supersonic speed, crossing the Atlantic, skimming over the Mediterranean. And then, the desert appeared. He was hovering over the sky of Giza. Full moon night. Silver moonlight coated the 3 pyramids in a layer of cold armor. Even for an expert who had studied them through millions of photos, the actual sight choked Dennis. 2D photos are garbage. Video is trash. Their physical presence, that weight, that massive scale, it crushes every sense. They stand tall, like artificial mountains, challenging time itself. Let's go. The alien pulled Dennis's consciousness down. No queuing for tickets. No walking through the tourist entrance. They went through the stone. The sensation of passing through solid matter was strange, like walking through a thick fog of static electricity. Dennis found himself inside a narrow, steep corridor. The grand gallery. Though void of people, though ravaged by time, the building was still vibrating. Dennis felt it in the depths of his soul. A low, steady, continuous frequency, not sound. It was the resonance of a massive rock mass oscillating. 432 hertz, the alien whispered. It's still running. The heart of the machine is still beating after millennia. They reached the destination. The king's chamber, a rectangular room lined with rough red granite. In the center, a dark granite sarcophagus. No lid, no patterns. No gold or silver. Completely different from the gaudy tombs in the Valley of the Kings, this place was naked to the point of being industrial. Why? Because this is not a place to honor the dead. This is a reactor chamber. And in engineering, beauty lies in function, not decoration. Dennis stared into the empty stone box. A thought flashed, sharp and cold as a scalpel. Since it's not a grave, it never held a corpse. The alien nodded in confirmation. Correct. It is an interface port. Now plug yourself in. You will understand not through hollow theory but through painful and glorious empiricism. Lie down. Dennis hesitated. A part of the old professor's rational brain was still screaming in protest. But 40 years of being disregarded, 40 years of hugging the truth in solitude had pushed him to the brink. He had nothing left to lose. Dennis focused. He constructed an energy body, an optical duplicate of himself. It was ethereal, but dense enough to interact. He stepped forward and lay down inside the granite sarcophagus. Cold. The chill of the stone seeped through his energy shell. But the moment his back touched the bottom of the coffer, slam. The silence shattered. The 402 Hz vibration, which had been a low hum like a mosquito, suddenly roared like a jet engine. The structure of the room, sacred geometry, focused every single sound wave onto the exact spot where Dennis lay. It was like lying inside the resonance chamber of a Titanic speaker. Every energy cell in his body vibrated violently. It was so visceral he wanted to vomit his guts out, but he didn't have a physical stomach to empty. The alien's voice rang in his head, steel hard like a military command. Don't resist. If you tense up, you will shatter. Relax. Let that frequency rip you apart and put you back together. Breathe, even without lungs. Follow the protocol I uploaded to your head. 3 short, 1 long. Inhale, 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 exhale. Dennis mimicked the protocol, inhaling energy, exhaling toxicity. With every respiratory cycle, he felt himself sinking with the heartbeat of the pyramid. And then, the heat hit. Not from the outside. It exploded from his tailbone, as if someone had just poured molten aluminum into his spinal cord. An invisible fire began to climb up his spine, incinerating every obstacle in its path. Kundalini, the alien explained, voice cold as he monitored the readouts. Biological nuclear energy. Most humans die without ever activating this reactor. But this machine, it is running a force boot. It shot up like a snake made of fire. It rammed into every closed chakra. Knock knock. Open up. Dennis arched his back. Pain. Not exactly. It was a brutal purification. Suddenly, data flooded in. Not the memories of Dennis Reeves, the 58-year-old failure from Tempe, but compressed files from thousands of years ago. Flash, Egypt, 3,000 years ago. He was a scribe, hands stained with ink, hunched over copying sacred texts in a dim temple. He wrote, but he didn't understand. He was just a meat photocopier. The frustration, the hunger for knowledge. It was identical to the pain of his current life. A man standing on the sidelines of wisdom. Flash, further back, the Golden Age. He was a high priest, white robes, authority. He was standing right here, in this king's chamber. He was controlling the sound frequencies. He knew how to operate the machine. He understood everything. Dennis shuddered in the fire of memory. He was no stranger. The alien whispered, his voice carrying a hint of mockery but full of validation. See, you didn't get lost in here, Dennis. You just clocked out for a little too long. That wasn't a random hobby, the voice rang in his head as the fire incinerated his spinal cord. That was a ping. A signal from your ancestors has been continuously pinging your server for the last 58 years. Cellular memory unlocked. He didn't choose Egypt. Egypt chose him from the womb. The energy source crashed straight into the heart chakra. Boom. Not a gentle warmth. It was an emotional nuclear explosion. A dam bursting after 40 years of accumulated floodwaters. Frustration, rage, bitterness, humiliation from ignorant colleagues, sleepless nights over debt. All of it gushed out. But then, Forgiveness arrived, not because Dennis suddenly became a saint, but because he realized the futility of hatred. He forgave those academics, forgave the world that abandoned him, and most importantly, he forgave himself. The corrupted files in his soul were just permanently deleted. Heart gate open, firewall disabled, push the energy up. Current surged through his throat, then shot straight to his forehead. The third eye. It didn't open to see ghosts. It opened a heads-up display, HUD, of reality. Dennis no longer looked with naked eyes. He looked with pure perception. The room disappeared. The pyramid became transparent. He saw the true Egypt, not sand and stone, but a massive fiber optic network of light. Ley lines ran vertically and horizontally, connecting every temple, every rock. Geologists call it superstition. Morons. It is a planetary power grid. His vision expanded globally. He saw other nodes blinking on the world map. Machu Picchu in Peru, Stonehenge in England, the pyramids of the sun in Bosnia, ancient temples in India. All were online. All were connected. It was a global activation network left by the Anunnaki and elder races. And Egypt, it is the CPU, the heart, the central server coordinating the entire system. The energy stream shot up to the crown chakra. System reboot. The ego named Dennis Reeves, the failed doctor, the broke husband, was wiped out in an instant. He dissolved into pure consciousness, nameless, formless, eternal. In that admin mode, he understood everything. Every failure, every fall, every mockery. They were not tragedies. They were a screening process, a stress test. The universe needed to ensure his hardware was tough enough to handle this energy load without blowing a fuse. It was a design, a hidden plan. Then he returned. The ego was reconstructed, but this time it was no longer a rigid iron cage. It was flexible. Dennis knew he was playing the role of a human, but he was no longer just that role. He opened his eyes, still lying in the stone coffin, but the world was different. The granite room was no longer barren. The walls were alive. Thousands of glowing hieroglyphs, codes invisible to the naked eye, were running along the walls like data streams in the Matrix. They were always there. It was just that his old graphics card was too weak to render them. Now, with new drivers, he saw the full spectrum. Dennis gently sat up, stepping out of the sarcophagus, like emerging from 1,000-year cryosleep. He looked at the alien, the silent observer. Dennis didn't open his mouth. He didn't need to use the obsolete technology called language. He projected his thoughts straight into the other's head, using the telepathy protocol for the first time. I understand, not with the brain, but with blood. Egypt is not a mystery to be deciphered. Dennis broadcasted his thought, sharp as a laser. It is a map. And I was a fool who spent a lifetime burying my nose in the paper map without realizing that the true territory is my own body. The alien nodded. Precisely. And now that territory has been activated. This is just level 1, equivalent to the initiate level of ancient priests. But trust me, it is enough to permanently alter your cognitive structure. When you wake up in that old carcass in Arizona, you will no longer be the Dennis Reeves of yesterday. The software has been upgraded. Your intuition will be as sensitive as military radar. Primitive telepathy will emerge. Synchronicity will happen continuously like a rainstorm. You will see connections where normal people are blind. Purpose? Dennis asked. What do I do with this power? You didn't waste your life, Dennis. You survived the harshest training course, solitude, and now the real mission begins. Forget those dusty academic scholars. Don't try to lecture those who have plugged their ears. Your mission is to find allies. You are the bridge. You are the link between the ancient data file and modern seekers. You don't need to be a pop star. You just need to be effective. Every person you wake up becomes a new broadcasting station. That is the domino effect. Dennis smiled faintly, a smile containing 40 years of bitterness transformed into arrogance. Will they call me crazy again, like my old colleagues? The alien replied, tone dripping with disdain for the ignorant masses. Don't try to explain quantum physics to a toaster. That is a waste of battery. Don't argue with skeptics. Speak to those on the same frequency. Recognition will come immediately. Those who are ready, they will smell the truth in your words. They don't need proof. They need resonance. A bell inside them will ring when they hear you. As for ridicule, you are already immune, Dennis. You were just forged in the nuclear reactor of the pharaohs. The opinions of those operating at low frequencies are now just the buzzing of mosquitoes in the ear of a lion. They can't scratch your skin anymore. Dennis looked down at his energy hands, then at the endless desert. But I still want to come here, in the flesh. I want my heels to sink into the sand. I want my bare hands to touch the cold stone. Is that still far-fetched for a pensioner's wallet? The alien looked at him, affirming with absolute certainty, not just possible, it is inevitable. The universe is rearranging the chessboard. Resources are being mobilized. Money, opportunities, plane tickets. They are just lines of code in this reality. When your frequency changes, physical reality is forced to bend to match it. Within 1 year you will stand here, in flesh and blood. And when you arrive, you won't be a clueless tourist holding a selfie stick. You are an initiated one returning home. The pyramid will recognize your ID code. Invisible guardians will lower their weapons to welcome you. And that activation, when flesh touches stone, will be deeper than anything you can imagine. What you just saw, that was just the appetizer. The upcoming physical trip is the main course. Dennis felt a profound gratitude flooding his soul. But this time, it wasn't the weak gratitude of a beggar receiving alms. It was the respect of a warrior for a brutal training regimen. He realized a shocking truth. Had he succeeded early, had he become a prestigious Professor Reeves, sitting in an academic ivory tower, he would have died inside. Arrogance would have blinded him. He would have become a parrot, regurgitating hollow theories. Failure, isolation, pain. They were all camouflage for a greater preparation. The universe held his head underwater so he would learn to crave air. Time to return. Arizona is waiting. The alien lightly touched his forehead one last time. Disconnect. The granite room dissolved. Brilliant Egypt rolled up like an old map. Dennis's consciousness was shot back across oceans, through continents at the speed of light. He opened his eyes. Tempe, Arizona. He was sitting in the old armchair in his living room. The TV was still black. Silence filled the space. But everything was different. Dennis looked at his trembling hands. He looked at the wall, the table, the rug. The colors were more vibrant. The sound of crickets outside was as clear as bells. Reality's resolution seemed to have just upgraded from 480p to 8K. He knew, deep in every carbon molecule of this body, nothing could ever go back to the way it was. But Dennis was not alone. In the corner of the room, the soft blue light was still oscillating. The alien was still there. He hadn't vanished. He was waiting to execute the final step of the process, mission debriefing. There are still data files you need to download before I leave, Dennis. The voice rang directly in his head, clearer than ever. You've had the experience. Now you need the logic to assemble the full picture. Dennis nodded. His brain was running at full capacity, hungry for information. The first question mere mortals always ask when visiting Egypt. Why do they cry? Why do rational tourists, atheists, break down and sob uncontrollably when standing before the pyramids? Why do they have such powerful déjà vu? Academia calls it Stendhal syndrome, or romantic overprojection. Dead wrong. The alien stepped closer, the blue light illuminating Dennis's wrinkled face. They cry because they remember, not brain memory, but cellular memory. They were actually there, Dennis, not in this life. Go back 13,000 years. When Sumer was wiped out by the Great Flood, the Anunnaki didn't abandon their staff. We selected the most elite souls, scribes, builders, priests, those with skill and loyalty. We executed a massive HR transfer operation. We reincarnated them in the Nile Valley, intentionally, to rebuild civilization, to maintain the system. And today, in this age of awakening, those souls are reincarnating again. When they return to Egypt, their soul GPS signals, destination reached. That crying isn't sadness. It's the sound of a key clicking into the right lock. Dennis swallowed hard, a chill running down his spine. What about those who have never been? People like me, who only feel the call through books? Same mechanism, the alien replied firmly. Why do you think you are obsessed with architectural drawings? 3,200 years ago, Dendera, you weren't a pharaoh. You were an assistant architect. You were a human trained by the Anunnaki. You were the one holding the construction blueprints. Your obsession in this life isn't a hobby. It's your old profession demanding back control. The soul is an eternal hard drive, Dennis. The ego is just temporary RAM. When you shut down, die, the RAM is wiped clean, but the data in the hard drive remains intact. And when you come back here, standing in front of those rocks, the drive begins to read the old data. The realization will be like a 220-valve electric shock. I guarantee you will be stunned. Dennis felt a chill run down his spine, the cold chill of understanding. Fragmented pieces from the last 40 years suddenly clicked together perfectly. The alien continued, his voice hardening like a hammer striking an anvil. The second thing you need to etch into your bones. Why stone? Why did the Anunnaki bust their asses cutting 200-ton blocks, transporting them hundreds of kilometers, when they could have just written a book and left? Why play the game on hard mode? Answer: durability. They knew the nature of this universe. Civilizations rise and fall like tides. Libraries will burn to ash. Papyrus will rot. Oral traditions will be twisted into nonsense fairy tales. Humanity, you are a species that excels at destruction. But stone, especially granite and limestone weighing hundreds of tons, good luck destroying that. Dennis gasped, his eyes lighting up. Egypt is the backup server. Precisely. It is spiritual hardware kept in reserve for when the cultural software crashes. Dennis's voice trembled. The Library of Alexandria. We burned it. We burned the sum of human knowledge. We lost everything. Correct. The alien nodded coldly. You burned paper. But you cannot burn the pyramid. And that was no accident. That is a fault-tolerant design. Ultimate knowledge is not written in ink. It is encoded in geometry, in ratios, in astronomical alignment. Stone doesn't lie. Stone doesn't change its meaning based on the politics of the time. It sits there, stoic, patiently waiting, until you monkeys invent laser scanners and supercomputers to understand what it is saying. Impossible mathematics, precise acoustics, It is all a giant textbook that no one can tear the pages out of. Dennis took a deep breath. What about the symptoms? The tourists, they get dizzy, they flush with heat, they cry. Doctors call it psychological disorder. The alien sneered. Doctors call everything they don't understand psychological. Listen to me. It is a physical reaction. When a 110V device is plugged into a 200V outlet, it heats up. Humans are no different. Dizziness. That is the structural magnetic field recalibrating your navigation system. It is realigning the high chakras, 5th, 6th, and the 3rd eye. Your body isn't used to this altitude of frequency, so the vestibular system throws errors. But in reality, it is a balancing process. High heat, burning spine, chest. That is the Kundalini reactor restarting. Dormant life energy is being force-booted. Spontaneous crying. That is not sadness. That is a valve release. The pyramid structure squeezes your energy field like wringing out a dirty sponge. Trauma, pain, emotional garbage from this life and past lives. All of it is flushed out through the tear ducts. Muddy water must flow out so clear water can flow in. The euphoria, high, afterwards. That is because you are vibrating at a 5D frequency for a few hours. You are high on cosmic energy. Sensitive people will even see us. Anunnaki energy forms still patrolling the temples. That is not a hallucination. That is nature's augmented reality, AR. That is why they changed Dennis, the alien asserted. They go home thinking the difference is just a great vacation or mystical oriental culture. Dead wrong. It is a mutation. Their DNA has been activated. They can never go back to being obedient sheep. Synchronicities appear constantly. Intuition becomes razor sharp. They start asking questions about the meaning of life instead of asking what's on TV tonight. He pointed at the void, as if painting a glorious vision. Remember, that giant machine is running at 20% capacity, with its casing stripped and components removed. Imagine, just imagine, if we reinstalled the white Tura limestone, if we placed the solid gold Ben stone back on the capstone, 100% capacity, it wouldn't be a tourist wonder. It would be the literal rebirth of the golden age. Dennis remained silent for a long time. A question that had tormented him for 40 years now welled up, bitter in his throat. Why? Why does academia loathe these theories with such passion? Why do they react so violently like we stepped on their tail? It's not just the conservatism of old professors. It feels like deliberate suppression. The alien looked at Dennis, his gaze more solemn than ever before. Because the truth is a threat, Dennis. The truth doesn't just liberate, it shatters power. Your entire social structure, government, religion, business, finance, rests on a single foundation. Humanity must sleep. Humanity must be weak. Humanity must be afraid. He held up his fingers, counting them off, each one a scathing indictment. 1. Fear of death. A human who knows he is immortal, who knows the soul is eternal, will never fear death. And a man who fears no death, no one can threaten him or send him to war for stupid reasons. 2. Medicine and pharma. A person who knows how to trigger self-healing will not need $1 trillion medical industry to sell them painkillers for the rest of their life. 3. Economy. A person who knows they can co-create reality, who knows how to attract abundance, will not accept being a slave to an economic system based on artificial scarcity. 4. Religion. A person who knows they carry divine blood, who knows God resides in their own heart, will not need any priest, pope, or middleman organization to sell them tickets to heaven. The knowledge of Egypt is poison to the status quo, Dennis. It is dangerous for the rulers, not for humanity. Dennis shuddered. Do they know? The government, the Vatican, the elite. Do they know everything? They know enough, the alien replied with contempt. Not all of them, but those at the very top do. Secret societies, high-degree Freemasons, Rosicrucians. They have hoarded fragments of Anunnaki knowledge for thousands of years. They study Egyptian symbols not because they love history. They study them because they know the power lies there. But instead of sharing it to upgrade humanity, they hide it like dragons guarding treasure. They use it to consolidate their own power. And the government? Especially those controlling archaeological sites. They are the most diligent gatekeepers. They bury every discovery that contradicts the textbooks. Take the chamber under the Sphinx's paws, for example. You think they don't know it's there. They know, Dennis. Ground-penetrating radar, GPR, has been screaming alarms for decades. They know exactly what lies beneath. Why don't they dig? Because the content would obliterate current history. Textbooks would have to be burned. PhDs would turn into waste paper. Major religions would collapse. That chaos. The elites don't want to manage it. They would rather rule a herd of obedient sheep in the dark than face awakened lions in the light. Dennis clenched his fists. But they can't hide it forever. The internet. Information is leaking everywhere. Correct, the alien nodded. The age of secrecy is dead. The dam has broken. That is why we are back. To support the first ones surfacing above the water. And Egypt is the signal transceiver for this awakening. But Dennis, you need to bring back a weapon stronger than stone. You need the 5 core truths. 5 silver bullets to shatter the chains of slavery. He raised his long, gaunt hand, counting them off one by one. 1. The truth about death. Humans are not this meat sack. You are eternal consciousness driving a temporary biological vehicle. Death, a scam. It's just when you return the rental car and step out. The stone sarcophagus isn't a coffin. It is a womb of rebirth. It is the emergency exit from the matrix. 2. The truth about reality. The material world is a byproduct of the mind. Your thoughts and emotions aren't smoke. They are command codes programming physics. The law of attraction isn't cheap New Age fluff. It is ancient Anunnaki quantum technology. You are architects asleep in your own construction. 3. The truth about origin. You are not shaved monkeys evolved by accident. You have Anunnaki genes in your blood. You are hybrids. Half Earth primate, half star traveler. You are the children of the gods in the literal genetic sense. Don't let anyone tell you you're mediocre. 4. The truth about power. Power lies inside. Burn your membership cards to all organizations. You don't need priests, popes, or brokers to talk to the universe. Your body is the temple. Your mind is the pyramid. The outer stone structure is just a mirror reflecting the nuclear reactor running inside you. 5. The truth about evolution. Humanity is not drifting aimlessly. This is a design. You are on a journey of return to source. Egypt is the map for this great repatriation. From gross matter to pure spirit. From forgetting who you are to remembering you are the master of destiny. Dennis listened, swallowing every word. Academia calls this heresy, but in his heart they rang like alarm bells. The alien lowered his voice, serious. One last thing, Dennis. Etch this into your soul. Physical Egypt is a mirror. The true Egypt lies in your heart. You don't need to buy a plane ticket to Cairo to awaken. Enlightenment can happen right in this shabby garage. However, Going there is a shortcut. It's using a cheat code, because that machine is still running. Energy is still oscillating. When your physical body steps into that field, it triggers deep layers that astral projection cannot reach. Go there when you can, and you will go soon. I guarantee it. But for those with no money, tell them. The real pyramid is located in their spinal cord. Listen closely, Dennis. Egypt is not geography. Egypt is the anatomy of the soul. The pyramid, that is your rise. A solid material foundation, body, reaching for the absolute spiritual peak, consciousness. It is the journey from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. The Sphinx, that is the guardian of self-mastery. It doesn't kill the beast, it rules the beast. It forces the wild ego to kneel and serve the intellect. The Nile, that is the bloodstream, the flow of life. Constant emotional purification, washing away the garbage of the past to be reborn every day. The temples, those are medical stations, each one surgically removing a specific painful tumor of the soul. The alien looked straight into Dennis's eyes. When you understand this source code, you can build an inner Egypt. You can construct the pyramid right during meditation. You can carve the Sphinx with your will. You don't need a plane ticket to touch holy ground. Foreign travel becomes a confirmation, not a requirement. This is the democratization of knowledge. Enlightenment isn't reserved for rich people with money for business class tickets. It is for anyone with enough guts and sincerity. Dennis felt a wholeness he had never known before. Every shard of 40 years of failure was now welded together into a solid shield. So, Dennis wondered, voice full of determination. My mission is writing, teaching, being a guide for those hearing the wild call from the desert? Precisely, the alien nodded. You are the bridge, not the only bridge, but an essential one. The mechanism is viral. I activate you. You activate 10 people. Those 10 activate 100. The network grows exponentially. Egypt will awaken not just in stone, but in the hearts of millions sitting in offices, factories, and schools across the globe. This is Anunnaki source code, version 2.0, not repeating the cumbersome past, but combining ancient wisdom with modern mindset, a synthesis creating a new species. And you, Dennis, 40 years of being buried by life, spat on by academia. That was the process of tempering steel. You are in the perfect position to do this. Nothing was wasted. It was all protocol. Dennis nodded. Gratitude surged. Not the weak kind, but the respect of a soldier for the commander who trained him. But he knew time was up. The blue light around the alien was flickering faster, stronger. The teleportation signal was activating. Dennis asked hurriedly. Voice urgent. Will you come back? Can I call you? If I get stuck with the lesson plan. If I need, phone a friend. The alien shook his head. A decisive but respectful shake. No, I will not return. I am not your babysitter, Dennis. One intervention is enough. You don't need me anymore. The data is already integrated into your hard drive. When in doubt, meditate. Connect with that pyramid you just built in your head. The answer will come from within, not fall from the sky, and you won't be alone. Other activated units will find you. A community will form naturally, like a magnet drawing iron. Dennis inhaled deeply. And the physical trip? You said it was inevitable. When? The alien replied, his voice echoing one last time, like an undeniable prophecy. Within 8 months. Synchronicity is operating. The universe is bending reality to get you there. Go prep your passport. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about the visa. Don't worry about the plane ticket. The voice echoed one last time, solid as a final decree. Resources will materialize out of thin air. An invitation will drop right into your lap. Pay attention to the omens. And when you get there, Dennis, for God's sake, don't go like some camel-riding tourist. Walk as an initiate returning home. Spend 3 days at Giza. Crawl into the king's chamber at dawn. Lie in that sarcophagus. This time, not with your imagination. This time, let real flesh touch real stone. The experience will be 10 times deeper. That is when the second activation layer unlocks. After that, go down the Nile. Hit every temple in the exact order I showed you. That is not a vacation. That is a full system reset protocol. Dennis stood there, feeling a strange certainty hardening in his marrow. Not fragile hope. He knew it would happen, just like he knew the sun would rise. He bowed his head, his voice trembling but full of reverence. Thank you. Thank you for choosing a failure like me. Thank you for trusting me when the whole world treated me like trash. The alien nodded, eyes showing a rare glimpse of softness. I don't need thanks. You prepared yourself. Decades of dedication in the shadows. That is a moral test no words can replace. And the way you will share this, not with the arrogance of a know-it-all professor, but with the humility of a witness. You are not a guru. You are a storyteller who saw it with his own eyes. That is the perfect attitude. The Anunnaki will be pleased. Flash. Light exploded. The silver-grey form dissolved into the void. No sound. No trace. Dennis stood alone in the dark living room in Tempe. The clock read 4 Cigar a.m., a night that lasted a lifetime. He stood up. His legs didn't wobble. On the contrary, they were planted solid like ancient tree roots. He looked up at the old Egyptology bookshelf, the books that used to be symbols of his frustration. Now they were different. 40 years of blind study, and click. The lights turned on. He understood. The following days passed in a strange state. Dennis thought he would panic, would ask himself if he was crazy, but no. His mind was crystal clear. He opened the books, looked at the hieroglyphs. No dictionary needed, no grammar needed. Their meanings danced before his eyes. He wasn't reading with his left brain. He was feeling their energy message. One morning, his pen couldn't be held back anymore. He started a simple blog. Name: Rediscovering Egypt. First post. He didn't mention aliens. He wasn't stupid. Who wants to be committed to an asylum on the first post? He wrote about the true purpose of the pyramids. Not tombs, activation technology. He wrote with the certainty of an engineer describing a machine, not a poet dreaming. He hit publish and went to sleep, expecting nothing. 3 days later, 20 emails from all over the world. The content was chillingly identical. I knew it. I always felt something was wrong with the textbooks. Thank God, finally someone said it. Do you teach? Do you know more? Dennis smiled at the computer screen. The alien was right. Resonance doesn't need proof. Truth has its own frequency, and those on the same frequency will tune in immediately. He started writing more, recording videos, explaining the symbols, the initiation journey. The community grew. 50 people, 100 people. No ads, no marketing. They found him like bees finding honey. 6 months later, Dennis was on a Zoom call with a core group of 12 people. He was lecturing on Hathor. During that Zoom session, a voice spoke up, soft but carrying the weight of destiny. I'm organizing a pilgrimage to Egypt. Small group. 3 weeks. Deep diving into the main temples. Anyone want to join? Dennis shuddered. That wasn't a travel sales pitch. That was a signal. He asked for the cost. The number given matched exactly to the penny the amount he had just earned from an unexpected consulting project last week. There are no coincidences. The universe doesn't play dice. The universe plays Lego, and the pieces just click together perfectly. Exactly 8 months after the alien's prophecy, Dennis stepped onto the plane. Destination: Cairo. When the wheels touched the runway, when his boot heel made first contact with the soil of Mother Egypt, an electric current shot down his spine. He wasn't a tourist. He was a prodigal son returning home after thousands of years of exile. The following days were a sequence of activation rituals. He went to Giza. He laid his bare hands on the massive stone blocks. And the stones. They recognized him. Cellular memory exploded like fireworks. Dawn of the third day. The king's chamber. Dennis climbed into the granite sarcophagus. This time, no visualization. It was real flesh, cold, hard, and vibrating. What the alien promised happened. A massive energetic shock. The second activation layer was unlocked. When he walked out of the pyramid, Dennis Reeves died. The man who walked out was a new entity, a living bridge, a messenger. Two years later, sunset at the Temple of Karnak. Dennis stood amidst the gigantic columns, his voice echoing with authority. He was leading a group of 20 seekers. He wasn't holding a tour flag. He was explaining the ascension of consciousness encoded in the stone. And when he looked into their eyes, he saw it. The look of recognition. The look of ancient souls snapping awake after a long coma. They knew what he said was the truth because they had been there too. And now, I want to talk to you. Yes, you, the person reading these lines. If you have patiently followed Dennis's story to this very last page, if you look at images of the pyramids and your gut twists with an invisible nostalgia, if you feel that those structures are not tombs but something far greater, then congratulations and also condolences. You are one of us. You didn't randomly obsess over Egypt. You carry ancestral memory. You carry the genes of the builders, the priests who worked with the Anunnaki. You are a sleeper unit, currently being activated. The real journey doesn't require a plane ticket. The true Egypt lies in your heart. If this story has pulled the trigger inside you, if you are ready to stop searching outside and start building your internal pyramid, then this is the tool for you. The ebook, Reconnecting with Your Divine Essence. It is not for the weak seeking comfort. It is for the brave who dare to smash the curtain of illusion. It helps you delete the slave programming of society, religion, and dogma. It helps you establish a direct hotline to the Creator, the God sitting right in your spinal cord, without any middlemen. The link is in the pinned comment. If you dare, click it. And don't forget, subscribe. Turn on notifications. We don't tell fairy tales. We share forbidden truths. Leave a comment below. Do you feel like you lived in Egypt in a past life? Have you ever missed a place you've never been? Your support is the fuel for us to keep digging up these secrets. You didn't come here by accident. The seed has been planted. The activation code has been sent. The rest is up to you. See you in the next story.